17. Coming up on the program here in just a little bit, I guess in about 20 minutes or so, we'll be joined by Jared Denny from scoopduck.com, one of our sister sites that covers the Oregon Ducks. Of course, today, the big news in college football and even more so the big news in college athletics is the alliance between the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 that came out. Jared covered that call earlier today, and we'll get his thoughts on the moving and the shaking that is going on in the world of college sports from the left coast perspective out west, Oregon. Of course, they've got mask policies in place, and those mask policies are making their way further and further east. As a matter of fact, landing in the heart of the SEC in Baton Rouge. We'll talk about that here on the program this afternoon as well. But what has been deemed a potentially historic alliance between the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 has been announced. And according to reports, the Pac-12, and this is part of the reason that I wanted to get up with Jared from scoopduck.com, is the fact that the Pac-12 has been, according to reports, the, quote, most aggressive in forming and encouraging this alliance with the ACC and the Big Ten. That makes a lot of sense to me, just sort of reading the tea leaves of the college football playoff and paying attention to what's been going on that front and how, in a lot of respects, whether it be media bias, whether it be television times, whether it be coverage on the East Coast, the Pac-12 sort of been lost in the conversation in recent years. And really, if you think about the college football playoff from a historical perspective, they have yet to place one of what you would deem the top tier. And again, that should not be taken as offensive to the Oregon folks, but I know they'll take it that way. But they made the college football playoff in year one, and then you have Washington make it. But when I and I hate to say that about Oregon, but that's been a long time. And what we're coming up on now, 7-8 years ago, that Oregon was in the college football playoff back in 2014 in the first rendition of the college football playoff. I mean, before we know it, this will be 8 years now. So 7, I guess, since they've been in at the end of this season, if they don't get in. But you haven't seen Southern Cal there, and they're obviously the biggest name out west. And the league as a whole, when it comes down to the college football playoff, hasn't been a part of it since 2016, 2015. I think if my memory's with me on this one, without looking it up, I can dive right in real quick and tell you. But I think that was the last time that we had the Pac-12 involved. Let's see, 2016. Nope, 17. There it was, Washington and Alabama, 2017 playoff. I believe the last time we had somebody from the left coast involved in it, and it's been so heavy with the ACC with your Clemson Tigers, the SEC with Alabama and Georgia and LSU, and the Big Ten's been there with Ohio State a number of times recently. Notre Dame's made several appearances, Oklahoma. But the Pac-12 sort of been vacant for a while now. And of the 7 renditions of the college football playoff, just 2 have featured teams from the Pac-12. So maybe it shouldn't be a surprise that the Pac-12, according to reports, has been the most aggressive in pulling this off. But I will say that in that respect, I think it is a healthy relationship potentially down the road, depending on expansion of the college football playoff, television rights, and ultimately scheduling over the next, 7-8 years after we move past some of these current schedules that we've got in front of us to maybe shift some of the, I don't know if you'd call it power for sure, but I think you certainly would shift some of the conversations about strength of schedule. You could help that significantly by adding a team, maybe even 2 from one of these other leagues. All right, so let's see who's chatting along with us today. Again, the new studio up, rocking and rolling, and we got it rocking and rolling here a couple of days ago. And still working on the backdrop, got some people putting some things together for us that we're going to get up and on the wall in the brand new studio. But I certainly hope you like it. Kyle's in the house. He is the honey king of the upstate, joining us here on the program. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to get over to Kyle's honey bee farm, but he's got the honey. He's got the honey. Nick shared the program. Nick, there's a consequence for that. 2-minute penalty, Nick. It's like icing. No, that's not a penalty in hockey. It's like hooking. You can't do that. Stop sharing the show, Nick. Stop. Get control of yourself. Appreciate it, man. And Larry is also in the house. Linda's hanging out as well, according to Larry. So, again, thank you all for being a part of the program. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086 is the number, and always appreciate each and every one of you being a part of the program. Again, Jared Denny from scoopduck.com going to be joining us here in a little bit. We'll also hear some of the comments about this collaboration between these three leagues as they come together. And, the other thing, too, I saw a tweet that was talking about, and again, I've heard tale that you cannot believe everything on Twitter. So I do not. But I did see something that said that former Bears coach how do you pronounce his name? Weinstead. Remember? Can't even pronounce his name, so it doesn't do me any good. Weinstead? I can't even spell it, man. What's his name? If anybody can remember his first name, I might can find it. I think he played at Pitt, right? What's his name? Weinstead? What's that dude's name? Bears coaches all time. I'll figure it out now. That's the way I can get it. What's up, Big E? Big E's in the house. Appreciate you, Big E. What is that coach's name? Y'all help me out. Weinstead? Is that how you say it? Here it is. Weinstead? Dave? How do you pronounce this guy's name? Weinstead? Was I saying it right? Wannstedt? Is that how you say it? All right. I'll take your word for it if you're right. So Dave Weinstead, according to someone on Twitter, was talking about a Fox Sports meeting where he heard tale of rumors of West Virginia going to the ACC. I don't know if you saw that information. Oklahoma State and Kansas State to the Pac-12. Iowa State and Kansas going to the Big Ten. He said he heard that at Fox meetings. I saw that on social media. And again, you can only believe it for so much. But this would beg the theory and support the theory that I brought up weeks ago here on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, about the nasty breakup of the remaining 8 teams from the Big 12 and how I felt, and they didn't love it. You go find the tweets. They didn't love it at TCU when I left them high and dry in an expanded college football conference deal. I even found a way to slide Baylor in and Texas Tech in. I'm the guy that left TCU out, and boy, they did not like being left out. But in this scenario, and I'll tell you what, if you're one of those remaining teams in the state of Texas, our buddies over at Sick'em 365 with the Baylor site in our network, if you're a TCU fan, you're a Horned Frog fan, if you're a Red Raider fan, those 3 teams right now could be the odd people out when it comes down to this expansion deal and where things all go. Because if West Virginia ended up in the ACC, not shocking news. If Iowa State and Kansas end up in the Big Ten, not shocking news. As a matter of fact, with Iowa being in the Big Ten, Iowa State being in the Big Ten makes a ton of sense to me. And I'm going to be honest with you. At that point, if you're Oklahoma State and Kansas State, just be thankful you got somewhere to go. Like, take that spot, because what you don't want to be Kansas State is Oklahoma State and Texas Tech make their way to the Pac-12. Now, again, I don't know if that'll happen. Edward's in the house. He's back in the saddle with us as well. Appreciate you, Edward, for hanging out too. But yeah, this news today, and again, not brand new news. I think we all kind of knew that it was potentially coming. And we had heard tale that it would be coming over the next 10 days. Would it take like weekend to get it all together? This historic alliance announced today between the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten is grounded in a commitment to our student athletes. We believe that collaborating together with we are stronger in our commitment to addressing the broad issues and opportunities facing college athletics. That's the words of the Pac-12 commissioner. According to ESPN, another source familiar with discussions said that the Pac-12 is driving this. That's why we've got Jared Denny from scoopduck.com coming on with us to talk about it from the Oregon perspective. And again, I think that one of the things that the Big 12 benefits from in a scenario like this is twofold, really. One, there becomes a little bit of an ease of access to better kickoff times, even if that means that you have teams that have to travel across the country. The alternative swap off for the ACC and the Big Ten is that those teams might say, hey, look, we'll play you out west. We'll come back across the country next year, but that needs to be a 4 o'clock kickoff local time so that you're getting the benefit of the night game on ABC or something to that degree when it comes down to the kickoff time on the East Coast. So even if it's, I guess, the 3 hour time difference. So if it's a 5 o'clock game out there, you get the 8 o'clock kickoff. So you kick you kick Clemson and Southern Cal off at 5:20 p.m. West Coast time, and you get the benefit on the East Coast of having, playing on that biggest stage nationally. Then conversely, for Oregon, they'll come across the country in this fake scenario. And they're already playing Ohio State this year. But let's say it was a matchup with an ACC team. Let's say that Oregon was going to hook up with Florida State, and you play that game on the East Coast at a reasonable hour, whatever time of day. It fits a great TV window for Oregon that they don't typically get when they're snapping the football for the first time at 10 o'clock on the East Coast. And then you have Florida State go out there and play them at a better time down the road. Now, again, the other side of this is that we just don't know how big this will be. I mean, will it come down to simply being a driving force behind partnerships and scheduling? Will it be a driving force in managing some of the minutia and the underlying aspects of NIL and even the college football playoff, possibly the expansion of the college football playoff? I don't know what that will mean. I can tell you the three leagues already have at this point 68 football games scheduled to take place against one another between 2022 and 2035, and that number will increase to 103 games if you include Notre Dame, which plays Southern Cal and Stanford and 5 ACC opponents annually. And that's the team in the mix that we talked about last week that initially I thought, what happens to Notre Dame and all of this? And then it hit me, the Fighting Irish are made for this. I mean, this is the teams and the leagues that they play. They should have little to no concern on this front when it comes down to a partnership between these three leagues, because this is where they spend the bulk of their action anyway. I mean, we talked about the last time that they played. We talked about here on the show, I guess, the last time that they played against Georgia and how significant that game was. But the reality in a lot of respects is that they don't spend a ton of time playing against the SEC, and they spend a large majority of their time playing against the ACC and a couple of teams from the Pac-12 on a regular basis, and they love mixing in those matchups with the Big Ten. I mean, that is honestly one of the things that I miss, I think, now of Notre Dame's scheduling that you got to appreciate many years ago. And I think it truly comes down to what their schedule looked like in the 80s when I was a kid growing up. And look, I wasn't going to be somebody who was going to lock in on Notre Dame football on a Saturday on NBC. But, I mean, when Notre Dame was matching, I mean, this is their schedule from 1989. This is what Notre Dame played, okay? This is who they played when they, I believe that was the last year they won the national championship, or they finished second that year in the AP poll, 1989. So 87, I guess, was their last title. Notre Dame that season played Virginia from the ACC. They played Michigan from the Big Ten. They played Michigan State from the Big Ten and Purdue from the Big Ten. They played Stanford from the Pac-12. They played Air Force from the WAC, Southern Cal from the Pac-10. They played an independent Pitt. They played Navy. They played SMU. They played Penn State, who was an independent. They played Miami, who was an independent. And then they played Colorado and won that matchup against Colorado 21-6 in the Orange Bowl. So to me, that's the one thing. And again, some people say, Swanny, you're shooting down the ACC. But the reality is the majority of the ACC teams right now are not those same type matchups that that Notre Dame has played through the years, where they match up with Penn State, where they match up with Southern Cal, where they match up with Stanford. And that's just, the truth to it all. That was the 88 Notre Dame team that went undefeated. They beat West Virginia in the national championship that season. But eyeballing it here, I mean, that year, they played a number 9 Michigan. They played Michigan State, Purdue, Stanford, Pitt, Miami, Air Force, Navy, Rice, Penn State, Southern Cal. Like, that's what they don't have now. They essentially get those 5 ACC teams. If one of them happens to be Clemson, if another one happens to be Florida State, then you pick up Southern Cal and Stanford or whatever other games that they've got tied in out of the West Coast. Then, there's some significance to that schedule, and it's fun. But I don't think it's ever been more fun for the Fighting Irish fans than what they used to have. And the good news is for them, with these 3 leagues coming together, they're still very much in the conversation. Speaking of conversations, Jared Denny coming up here on the program from scoopduck.com. Take a moment, go check out their website. They cover the Oregon Ducks. Quack, quack. That's their big thing, man. When they get a commitment, Justin Hopkins and the guys that run the website, it's like quack. They got the big quack going across the board. So quack, quack. We'll have a duck and a swan, I guess, going head-to-head here on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk, in about 4 minutes when we get back from this break. So we'll hit a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about what this alliance means to the West Coast teams in the Pac-12, and then ultimately we'll focus a little bit on Oregon right after this.